Hey everyone, this is Alex or PolymomoTea, and today I have a video showing you how to make this carrot, beet, and turnip out of polymer clay and resin. And some special news, I have a giveaway for you guys that is sponsored by Miniature Sweets. So this is a $50 store credit prize, and in order to be entered, you just have to purchase from Miniature Sweets using the code PolymomoTea to get 10% off. And once you make that purchase, you'll be automatically entered for a chance of winning the $50 store credit. And by the end of the month, May 31st, that is when the contest giveaway will close. And on the first or second week of June, Miniature Sweet will announce the winning person of the $50 store credit on their Instagram and Facebook page. So all the information I just said will be in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. So now we're gonna make the template molds for our little roots. So for the carrot, I'm just rolling it into a cone shape that's slightly rounded. And for the turnip, I'm taking a ball of clay and I'm pinching a little bit on top to make that little turnip tip. I'm not really sure what it's called, but it's that kind of pointed swirly tip. And then I'm gonna flatten it out slightly on the bottom to have this acorn shape. And then for the beet, I'm going to do the same thing in what I did with the turnip. I'm going to make it a little bit more circular and slightly smaller. Then I baked according to instructions, and I had my carrot, turnip, and beet that look like this. Next, to make the mold, I'm taking a piece of tape and I'm placing the clay template onto the tape, using it as a backing. And I'm taking some sheet wax and I'm rolling it around to make the borders of the mold. Now you can use a small flat container if you have something like that, and I didn't have that, that's why I had to make my own borders. Or if you have like a cookie cutter or a small box, you can do that as well. But I, again, didn't have anything like that, so I just used these sheet wax that I can reuse over and over again. And now I have my two-part mold maker, and this is from Miniature Sweets, and it's the first time I used Miniature Sweet mold maker, and I wanted to do an honest review of it. So you get two parts in these squeeze bottles, and you want to mix it together. And once you mix it, you can tell it starts to cure really fast because it automatically starts to feel a little bit more viscous, which is nice. And it also has no odor, which is really nice. And I just poured it into my mold right there. And I only had to wait about 6 hours for it to cure, whereas the one I usually use, I have to wait a whole 24 hours. So this was a really fast setting mold. Also, let me know in the comment section below if you want a more in-depth review and a comparison video of this UV mold maker compared to my usual. So once the mold is set, I took off the tape backing and I unrolled the sheet wax. And I slowly took out the clay template out of the mold. Next, I'm going to make the leaves for all the vegetables, so I'm taking some green clay and I'm pinching it into a flattened teardrop shape, and then using the dull end of my blade, I'm just making indents at a slant. And using my blending tool, I'm kind of making them a little bit more rounder, making it more organic shaped. And once you have 3 of those, I'm going to attach them together, making it into a triangle shape, and I'm rolling the little tips on the bottom so they're stuck together, and I'm gonna bake it according to instructions. Then for the actual carrot itself, I'm taking some UV resin and some orange pigment dye, and I'm mixing it together and I'm filling up the mold completely. And once the resin has been fully cured on the UV lamp, I'm slowly demolding it, and it looks like this. And I'm adding some super glue at the top, and I'm adding my carrot leaves on top. And then I'm giving a final layer of glaze with some UV resin. And finishing it off, giving it the iconic dot eyes and line smile. And you should have something that looks like this. And you have your first crystal clear carrot. Next we're going to go for something a little bit more difficult, so I'm making the turnip leaves. So I'm doing the same thing where I pinch it into a flattened teardrop shape, and I'm making some indents with my blade, and using a blending tool I'm rounding out the sides of the leaf. And these are a little bit stubbier leaves than the carrot leaves. And then I'm adding a little purple snake of clay to make the stems of the leaves, and I'm attaching 3 of them together. And then I'm going to let it bake according to instructions. So the turnip I decided to make was the one that was partially white and partially red, so I mixed some white pigment with some UV resin to give it that opaque white look, and I poured it about a third of the way. And once I let that first layer cure, I added a little bit of pink to that white mixture of resin, and I poured it into my mold to give it a little bit of a gradient. And once that cured, I added some more UV resin with just the pink pigment, and I poured it into the mold completely and let that cure. And carefully I removed the resin piece from the mold. I glued on the green stem leaves onto the top of my turnip. And I applied a layer of UV resin on top of my turnip. And before the resin cured, I added some dot eyes and a line smile onto my turnip as well. And here's the finished product, and I really love the gradient. I wish I did a few more layers of gradient, but I lacked the patience to do that. Now for the beet, we're going to be using the same exact leaves that we made for the turnip, but instead of using purple stems, we'll be using light green stems. And once you make all your leaves, we're gonna blend the 3 stems together, exactly how we did the other 2. And we're gonna let that bake according to instructions when completed. To make that beet color, I added some UV resin, some purple, and I also added some red. And to me, after I mixed it all together, I was like, sure, that looks like a beet. Next, I filled the mold with the beet colored resin. And once completely filled, I let that cure under the UV lamp for a couple of minutes, and slowly I removed it from the mold. I glued on the stem leaves onto the beet, and I gave it a nice layer of UV resin glaze, as well as some dot eyes and a line smile, which I can't forget. And here is the finished product, and this is our little beet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this 3-in-1 root vegetables tutorial out of polymer clay and resin. I think my favorite of the 3 has got to be the turnip, only because it has a little bit more details and a little bit of variation in color. I do like the beet a lot because I am very happy with how the color turned out. I'm not a big fan of the actual beet, the vegetable, but I do like the little one that I did make. and the carrot is always a good classic to make. So most of the materials that I use for this video are actually from Miniature Sweets, such as the resin, the pigment, and the mold maker. So don't forget to check out their shop, which I'll be linking in the description box below. And if you use the code PolymomoTea during the month of May for your purchase, you'll be entered in a raffle and a chance to win a $50 store credit from their store. So don't forget to check that out. Thank you.